Welcome to Talking Giants, presented by John Boy Media. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick, and we're running it back. We got Entertainah and NYG Daily, Chris and Weiss on the podcast. Very excited. I'm not going to waste too much time getting into it, but we hope to have them on next week. Justin, how are you, and are you excited for our watch party volume 2 at Billy's in the Bronx?
I am even more excited for this because obviously there's a little worry just from our perspective on, can we get everybody to the event? Is the game even going to be good? What's the presentation going to be like? Is the stream going to go okay? I am so excited for our watch party part 2, Billy's Sports Bar in the Bronx. I know Billy's is like famous, but I like texted Joe's McFly, who, you know Joe's McFly, John Boy Media, he's a big Yankee guy. I said, is this like a famous place? And he's like, yeah, it's like legit. So it's kind of a cool moment that Billy's Sports Bar is like, yeah, we saw what happened last weekend. We want that. We want to be part of it. So, and I think you should want to be part of it too. And we hope you can be part of it. Billy's Sports Bar in the Bronx, Saturday night. You're going to want to be there. The link is in the description to buy your tickets. And guess what?
Get them.
Buy
because
them. Buy them. Do it.
Yeah, get them because they sold out quick last time. And had a lot of people messaging me, and I felt really, really bad not being able to get people tickets. So if you see the link, man, buy it because they will go out soon. They sold out way quicker than we thought last time. Hell, I'm worried that they'll be sold out by the time this podcast is out. And we're
bigger space. We're moving to a bigger space, which is awesome. But get them. Doesn't matter.
They are going to sell out. They sold out last time, so get them. And we really want you guys to come there. It was a lot of fun. It's fun when you get me to travel to New York twice in 2 weeks. So
yeah.
So make sure to get them. Link in the description. And they're only $20. Come have a good time. It's gonna be fun, and we're gonna win. Let's win some games. We'll announce Patreons on the Friday podcast.
Yep.
We spent so much time with Chris and Weiss. So we got a lot. So if you signed up, we did not forget you. All right, Justin, let's kick it to Chris, the Entertainah. All right, we're running it back, and we got our boy Chris, the Entertainah. We said, hey, let's talk again next week. We said that last week. Well, we're talking again. We're talking Giants, and we're talking about playoffs football. Chris, how you doing, my man?
Dude, how am I doing? I'm on cloud 9. Biggest win the New York Giants have had since their last Super Bowl. Our last playoff win we've had since our last Super Bowl run. So I'm amazing, and I'm going to make this promise. Hopefully make this promise to each other right now. We got to keep the good luck going. If we win again, we're doing this again next week. We'll recap this game, talk about the NFC Championship game, but super excited to be back. There's a lot to really be excited about coming out of this Minnesota game and looking ahead to the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, it's, where this is coming out on Wednesday, we're recording it Tuesday night, obviously, and we were talking pre-show. It's like, I'm still on the Vikings, but we got a whole Eagles playoff game to go to. Part of me saw it. I saw Eagles fans and Giants fans going back and forth on Twitter today, and I was like, oh yeah. I was like, if we beat you guys, you guys might have to kill us because we are never gonna shut up if we beat you guys in the playoffs. And I don't care if people point at the 49ers, whatever, 9-8. It's hard to beat a team 3 times. Not impossible.
100%.
But it is hard.
Chris, are you a big fan of history?
Am I? Yeah.
You like a little history, right?
Yeah.
2011 Giants, 8.5-point underdogs in a divisional round to a team they lost to in the regular season, and a win would send them to San Fran. 2022, the Giants are 7.5-point underdogs to a team they lost to in the regular season, and a win might send them to San Francisco.
Let's get into a little stat debate like last week, Justin.
Are you feeling something, Chris? I'm feeling a stat war coming.
I'm going to go a little bit further back in history. You went to 2011. I'm going to send this back to 2007.
Love it.
When we were in the divisional round and we played a team that beat us twice in the regular season in the divisional round against the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas, who coincidentally, like the Philadelphia Eagles, was the number 1 seed in the NFC. You know what they were favored by? 7.5.
Wow. Even better.
Even better. And to go to your point about how it's hard to beat a team 3 times in a regular season, I looked that up. So I do have some stats. I lied about it before the podcast.
Oh, you bamboozled me. You do have stats.
Yes. So in the history of football, actually one of my subscribers told me this, so that's how I know it. In the history of football, it has happened 24 times in the postseason where a team that swept the opposition played one another in the regular season. Their record is 15-9 in terms of the teams that swept the other team. And you may say, well, that's, 15-9, that's still not in our favor. But when you think about it, that means that it was a combined 48-0 record. They swept those guys in the regular season, and in the postseason, 15-9. It's a lot closer. So
it's a lot closer.
And I look at our coaching staff. Brian Daboll's had time to prepare against this team. He knows Jalen Hurts. Obviously, coached him at Alabama. We've seen 2 games against these guys. We showed them nothing the last time around because we're playing all of our backups, and we're hot. So I'm not saying we're going to win, but I think we got a decent shot. I think we're going to keep this game close, guys.
I'm pumped for it. I want to talk about something that we talked about a lot last week, and that is number 26, Saquon Barkley. Because we asked you, outside of Daniel Jones, and it ended up being Daniel Jones, who's the player that we're going to be really proud of and talking about on Monday? And on the offensive side, I think I kind of was happier with Saquon than Hodgins. And I want to talk about why guys like Hodgins could be open. And on the defensive side, obviously Dexter Lawrence. But man, so the film review should be out in a couple hours by the time people are listening to this. Saquon was occupying defenders. Like, we talked about how the Vikings were going to be focusing on Saquon and those little swing passes or coming out of the backfield. Well, they were. And we talked about running Saquon on the inside, like pass routes. Well, no, they were just bringing him there, and it was leaving guys like Richie James open, Darius Slayton, Isaiah Hodgins open, and then they were able to get Saquon involved, man. We talked about it last week. It's like, I want Saquon to be really efficient and be a superstar when he has the ball in hands. I don't need him to have 25 touches, and that's what he did. I mean, he averaged 8 yards every time he touched the ball, and it seemed like damn near every time he touched the ball, he did something great. Whether it was the first touchdown of the game, the 5-yard touchdown run, man, he just ran over Dalvin Thomas and drove his leg 3 yards.
Yeah,
making other guys miss and just having the burst when he did catch the ball to turn those into 10, 15, 20-yard gains. Like, man, we asked, like I said, we need superstar Saquon out of you. And it wasn't some 200-yard game, but it sure looked like a superstar out there.
Yeah, I mean, and what about the double spin move when he had like the 17-yard run?
Oh, nuts. I somehow forgot about that until I went and rewatched it Monday morning. I was like, I forgot about how sick this play was.
The guy was going full speed. It wasn't like he stopped and spun. He's going full speed, and he spins, then he spins again. Like you saw, he put it on full display. He caught 2 swing passes where he just bowled over the defender. Of course, the highlight play was the Kenny Golladay block on one of those. And then the other thing, I think Justin talked about it with me last week. I think he brought up this stat, or maybe you did. I can't recall who said it.
Stats.
This year, Saquon Barkley, in terms of, or maybe it was another podcast I was on. Maybe it wasn't yours. I can't recall. But regardless, I'm sure you guys know it. This year, Saquon Barkley, when he does catch the ball, he's not averaging a lot per catch. It's been a lot of 3, 4, 5-yard catches, especially in recent history. He averaged almost 12 yards a catch this game, which was really, really encouraging. And the play calling, guys, and the other thing you're talking about, I didn't watch the film like you did, but you talk about how Barkley was bringing attention on the outside with those swing passes. We were this close from that Statue of Liberty play working because the defenders were all looking at Saquon Barkley when he went out for the swing pass, and then Daniel Jones with the behind-the-back handoff. If Breida breaks that one tackle, he's going in for 6. And Daniel Jones looks so smooth on that handoff. I was so excited when I saw that play.
That's something too, Chris, where you talk about Breida and Saquon being on the field at the same time. You would think, you want to put more receivers on the field. In terms of spacing out the offense, that's what Daboll likes to run, 11 personnel. Even when you have Daniel Bellinger out there, a lot of those passing situations, Daniel Bellinger doesn't have his hand in the dirt. He's lined out wide. So,
right.
You would think Daboll spread it out, whatever. So this 22 or 21 personnel, with 2 running backs on the field, usually 21 personnel, you have a fullback out there. In years past, 21 personnel is Elijah Penny, Saquon Barkley, and a tight end. This year it's Saquon Barkley either out wide, Matt Breida in the backfield, or vice versa. When you have Breida in the backfield and then Saquon Barkley out wide, and then doing some pre-snap motion at the snap. They ran pre-snap motion /motion at the snap on 30% of the snaps this past Sunday. And that, another stat, Chris, I got some for you. They ran it 30% of the time, motion at the snap, and that was like the highest of the entire season. They were averaging like 16%. So they ran it twice their average this past game. And that was something that I loved. Usually like those plays where you get some sort of misdirection going, where teams are watching what Saquon Barkley's doing, it opens up things for other people like Matt Breida.
Well, and it opened up something for Barkley. The 28-yard touchdown run. There was motion going both ways.
Yep. That was Breida. That was Breida going in motion.
And I think Bellinger's
the linebackers are just sitting and they're standing, they're watching, and they're not reacting, they're not flowing. So it's awesome stuff. Awesome stuff.
Great stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he had gravity around him where it was like wherever he moved, the defense, followed. And it left guy, even like the first pass of the game, Richie James wide open. It's like, how's Richie James wide open? It's like they're paying attention to Saquon Barkley on the little swing route. So awesome stuff from him. Now, Daniel Jones, man, we talked about like we think this cat's going to show up, right? Well, I think he did even more than what we expected him. He played a perfect game. In this game, like I went, like I said, I watched. There was one play in the entire game where I was like, I wish he would have done this. One play in the entire game where I thought he could have done something different. And now again, the Vikings defense. The Vikings defense is not the reason that they won so many games, but they did win in a shootout, right? Like the Vikings offense played really well, and the Giants defense didn't play well. Yeah. Now we go against the Eagles defense that is a lot better, has a big front four, But the way Daniel Jones just has command of this offense, Chris, I just think he's going to will his way. Like, I don't know how well, I don't know how the defense is going to do, but I'm like very confident that Daniel Jones is going to will this Giants offense to get in the 20s at least.
Yeah, listen, the way Daniel Jones is playing right now, and I don't care if it's against Minnesota. I watched Justin Herbert the week before we played Minnesota throw 2 turnovers, and he couldn't score a touchdown against them the week before we played Minnesota when Daniel Jones looked terrific in the regular season. So, or was that against the Colts, rather? I think it was against Minnesota, if I'm not mistaken. But no, it was the Colts. But regardless, the way that he's played the last 4 weeks, Daniel Jones, he's looked like a completely different quarterback. He's looked more confident. Do I think he's going to throw for 300 yards and run for 75 or whatever he ran for against the Eagles? Probably not. It's not in a dome. They got a much better defense. But do I think he's going to make plays? Absolutely. And the thing that I really liked about Jones, how decisive he was, not just with throwing the ball, but running the ball. When he saw the hole, he just went for it. 17 carries, which I think was a record by a quarterback in the playoffs. He was good. It is a hot take, guys. He was better than I think I've ever seen Eli. Like, that's how good he was in that game.
Well, it's the rushing part of his game that brings the element to, number one, it's modern day football. The way that quarterbacks are running now, not just scrambling, like Mike Vick, for example, not just scrambling from dropping back to pass, but also the design runs. That's where it brings in that extra element of, this is how you can put yards up. This is how you can get first downs. This is how you can get explosive plays. That's what sets Daniel Jones apart from any quarterback that the Giants have ever had in their franchise history.
And he just has, like you said, Chris, like where it's like he knows when to run. He has total command of the offense. Like he knows when, hey, I got to sit in here and hang in there and deliver this throw on the crosser. Like he's seeing what the defense is doing. And he's like, okay, Neal's getting beat around the corner. Hang in here, ain't going to work. I'm going to get up and move. And that led to him having, all those rushing yards. And also, I kind of hate that his rushing totals are 17 for 78. It's really 13 for 82, but he had 4 kneel downs. Like, it should look a lot sexier than 17 for 82. And then it leads to, guess what? Hodgins is on a curl route. He's scrambling. Some dude, bites on that, and he throws to Hodgins, and Hodgins has a 30-yard gain. And, like, the confidence he's playing with. The pump fake 5 yards down the line, like past the line of scrimmage, like that's just playing with some confidence there. And I think he's playing the most confident he's ever played. This team is totally bought into him. He's bought into everything. And they've put the offense in his hands. And I want to kick it to you, but I'm on this like monologue right now.
No, you go. I'm loving it.
I think mine and Justin's best podcast of the year was the recap of the Commanders tie. Because we talked about this offense has been figured out. Like, they did some great stuff. The play action, the trying to run the ball 25 times a game, it has been figured out. Teams are stacking the box, and they are running run blitzes versus us. And the play action, they are not biting on it. They're just not. And we're running it out of downs. Well, since then, they have the Eagles game. They didn't really put it in his hands, but the Eagles game's like a wash. But since then, they are averaging 25.6 points per game, and I'll find out where that would rank. But like, you have the 31-point game versus the Vikings, 31 versus the Colts. The Viking, the regular season Vikings game. They've put the offense in Daniel Jones' hands. They've stopped trying to get stop trying to squeeze out every single carry touch you could get for Saquon Barkley, and involving him in the receiving game. Like he wasn't really involved in the receiving game much before that, and we've gotten the best version of the Giants, and Hodgins' addition is a big part of that. I mean, there's a lot of key factors, but at the end of the day, the biggest thing is they've put the offense in Daniel Jones' hands, especially on first down, because we could talk about how, the all-line can't block and receivers can't catch. Well, guess what? They can't block for Saquon either, and we're getting put in 2nd and 12, 2nd and 13s. What Daniel Jones could do, when the offensive line's screwed, he can scramble. He can throw it away. He can throw a quick pass on first down, and he's just had total command of the offense since.
So, Chris, let me just phrase it this way, because we had like I call it a mini debate, not like a debate.
I like mini debates.
We had a mini debate on kind of Saquon Barkley not having enough rushing attempts, and but the work in the receiving game can bypass that, and also the explosive running plays, like Saquon Barkley can just be more efficient with his touches. So knowing and seeing how the last couple weeks, basically since at Washington Tie, the Giants have thrown the ball more on early downs, put the offense in Daniel Jones' hands. How is your perception on this Giants offense and what you expect and what you want to see out of them change over the last couple weeks since we've put the offense more in Daniel Jones' hands instead of putting it in Saquon Barkley's belly and kind of running him 20-plus attempts?
Yeah, I mean, this is what I always envisioned, what I wanted the offense to eventually be.
Under Dable specifically, right?
Yeah, under Dable specifically.
Yeah.
I just didn't think we were there yet to go full throttle. And you've now started to see it. Now, we did have 30 carries as opposed to 35 throws, so it was about what I thought it would be. I think I said 55, 45, but 17 were Jones.
You forget about Daniel Jones running the ball. Yeah.
Right. And I think 13, like Bobby said, so really only 13. But still, we ran the ball a decent amount as opposed to the throw, but it was Jones. It wasn't Barkley. And when they did use Barkley, it was splash plays. And listen, if it's working, you go with it. Now, are they going to be able to do this against the Philadelphia Eagles? We'll see. I mean, it's not in a dome. It's a much tougher defense. So we'll see. They got a really good secondary. But listen, if it's working, you go with it. And this is eventually where I want the New York Giants to be. And this is what I expect this offense to be at the start of next season. Especially if, when Jones is back. It's not even if anymore. When Jones is back in this offense with Barkley, with all these players. And to go back to Bobby's point, I actually looked it up because he said about the points per game. I think you said 25.6 points. Yeah. So that would be 8th in the NFL, only behind Cincinnati, Detroit, San Francisco, Dallas, Philadelphia, Buffalo, and Kansas City. And in the New York Giants' last 3 games, they're averaging 28.3 points a game. And in their last 2 games, they've scored over 30 with the offense, which is something they have not done since Pat Shurmur. They had a 30-point game with Judge, but a defensive touchdown. So their last 2 games with Jones, they've scored over 30 points, something they have not done since Pat Shurmur.
It's beautiful, man. They're just putting trust in him to let it do it. But now we got Philadelphia, man. How are you feeling about this game? Obviously, I'm not putting it. So my mind with the second and third stringer game a couple weeks ago is that definitely instilled some confidence, and this Eagles team doesn't look the same. But I am still like, this Eagles team is really, really good, and we can't expect the offense to be perfect like we were this game. Like, you got to get some bounces that break your way, and the defense has to just flat out be better than what they were this past weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I think defense is going to be better. I do. I think the defense is going to be better. I don't think it's going to be like a shutout performance at all. The Eagles definitely got firepower. We'll see what Hurts looks like. I'm going to go with the assumption going in that he's going to be himself. He's going to put his body on the line. He's going to do what he has to do with his legs. But I'm hoping, maybe the weather conditions aren't great. It's at night, January. Maybe it's windy. It's not in a dome. It's not ideal conditions. Maybe that plays a little bit of a factor. But it's going to be tough. I mean, it's kind of pick your poison with the Eagles, right? Because we can't do what we did against the Vikings, because against the Vikings, we double cover Justin Jefferson the entire time. If you do that against Jalen Hurts and you have your back to the quarterback, it's going to be death by 1,000 paper cuts. He's going to get 8 yards, 9 yards. He's just going to run all over you. Yeah. So it's kind of a tough decision for the New York Giants. You're going to have to spy Hurts. The question is, do you do it from start to finish on the drives, or do you wait until they get inside the 20? Because if you do it from start to finish, then they may hit you with a huge play over the top with a guy like A.J. Brown, with a guy like Devontae Smith. When it gets condensed inside the 20, maybe that's when you spy him and don't let him kill it with your legs. But it's pick your poison with this team. They got weapons all over the field. We know that there's parts of our defense, the linebacking core specifically, where we're very limited. So it's not going to be easy. And on the other side, yeah, they got good cornerbacks. And, we don't have the most talented wide receivers, even though I am definitely on the Isaiah Hodgins train at this point. That guy's terrific. At this point, is it crazy for me to say that I think Hodgins is a number 2 wide receiver, or he could be at least a number 2 wide receiver?
If you have a really good wide receiver one.
I agree. You have to have an elite one. Yes.
Definitely
at least a 3, though, right? Definitely at least a 3.
Oh yeah. It'll be interesting to see what they do. We actually talk on the people haven't heard this part. We do talk about Slayton and how it's just such a weird case with him, where it's like we absolutely need him. He's a huge weapon, but it's like he can't be trusted.
Which to go, you just made me think about that. I mean, real quick, I meant to bring that up. You brought up Darius Slayton. Another sign about this team this year that is so much better than in years past. Be honest with yourself. If you listen to this, you guys, in years past, we lose that football game. Darius Slayton drops a pass, we lose the game. But the defense picked us up. We've seen it time and time and time again, where in the past, where Evan Ingram drops the ball against the Eagles, Slayton drops the ball against Washington, the team falls apart.
Yep.
This game, the defense picked him up. So, and we've seen that all year. One side helps the other. So it's been great.
And you know what gives me some more hope than the Week 18 game versus the Eagles? Is we didn't have Adoree or McKinney in that game, man. We didn't. And that makes a huge difference against a team like the Eagles, because with the Giants, it's like, hey, we can at least shut down one guy with Adoree. And A.J. Brown is great. He ain't Justin Jefferson. Not even close. And that's not a knock on A.J. Brown. I can even see them putting Adoree on Devontae Smith, because Smith is kind of the chain.
Yeah,
put him
I'll put Moreau.
Put in he's their chain mover. He's the quicker guy. And then no McKinney. You can lock up McKinney on tight ends. I think that makes a huge difference. And you may look at that score and say 48-22. I look at it and say 3 drives got extended because those 2 guys weren't on the field. Whether it's the Julian Love whiff on the 4th down, the first drive of the game that converted 3 different 3rd downs. Those are the type of things. And then once the game gets out of hand, it gets out of hand, That's what I look at, is like those guys. Do those guys erase 25 points from the game? No, but they can end 3 drives, and then that erases the points.
Yeah, and Daniel Jones is playing at another level. That changes things too. He's not the same quarterback he was when we played Philly.
Saquon basically took that game off, and he's looked a lot better and fresher since then.
Hodgins.
There's more. Yeah, there's more trust in Hodgins. Now, the thing that still worries me is Evan Neal and the interior. Like, the interior can do the Vikings defensive line is not great pass rushers on the inside. Like Dalvin, great player, not a great pass rusher. Harrison Phillips, not a great pass rusher, where they have just pass rushers all over the board.
Didn't they have like 72 sacks or something this year or something like that?
Insane. They have 4 10+ sack guys. You want to know who's fit? Who didn't make it? Fletcher Cox, who's 5th. Like, they're nuts up front. That's what worries me, because that's the type of stuff that wins in the playoffs.
And they have depth too, where it's Jordan Davis will come off the field and other guys will go on, and there'll be a guy where it's like, well, why isn't this really good pass rusher out there on 3rd down? Oh, it's because they have another 10+ sack guy that can go in there. And
it's like the way we used to be back in the day.
Yeah, like in 07. Like it kind of is reminiscent of that. So, Eagles, don't put your best pass rusher on Evan Neal. Put like your 3rd best pass rusher on Evan Neal.
Just don't put Hassan Reddick, because Hassan Reddick eats first tackles that have the issues that Evan Neal has.
Yeah.
So man. I asked you this question last week. Okay. If we win,
you were right.
Outside of Daniel Jones, who's going to be the guy? Are you going to double up on Saquon, or is it going to be somebody else?
Are we talking offensively?
It could be anybody.
All right, I got to think.
It could even be Jamie Gillian if you want to get wild.
Get crazy. Hopefully we're not punting.
I got to give you a good answer. All right, who are we talking about? Who's the breakout player in this game if the New York Giants win outside of Daniel Jones? If the Giants are going to win this game,
Carter Coughlin, Cam Brown.
I'm going to go with Dexter Lawrence.
Dude, and he was basically that in the last game. Like, he is a monster. Jason Kelce's a really good center. He's small. Like, and again, he's a great center. He works leverage well. Dex, you're an all-pro. You're an all-pro. Like he's an all-pro center. You're an all-pro nose tackle. Like that's going to be a battle. And the Giants' run game sucked all year long, but they were stacking the box before, right? Well, they've went to these light boxes, and you're like, the run defense hasn't gotten much worse. In fact, it's looked better at times. Now, it depends on what type of running offense they're playing. Well, it's because the run defense was already just boom or bust on Dex and Leo. So now we're taking let's take a guy out of the box because all it matters is those two guys anyways. And it's kind of working where it's, the passing games aren't going to be as efficient. So Dex has been a monster, man. And he was like, we think about the pass rush stuff from this last game, and rightfully so. Him in the run game was nuts. Like, he was insane in the run game this past game.
And Leo was good too. But I just think if we're gonna win this game, I think we're gonna have to create some turnovers. No doubt about it. Like that's the way I look at that. I don't think this is a team we're gonna be able to go up and down the field every time we get the ball. I think we're gonna have to try to be able to create an extra possession or two.
Yeah.
And I look at Dexter Lawrence as the type of guy. I think if you could disrupt Hurts, he can make mistakes. And I look at Dexter Lawrence as the type of guy, if he could get that interior pressure, even if he doesn't get the sack, I think he could create turnover opportunities for this team. I definitely could see Jalen Hurts panicking a bit if there is pressure. That's much easier said than done. You watch Eagles tape every week, the guy's all day to throw. But if Dexter Lawrence could get interior pressure on this guy and we could seal the edges, I could see Hurts coughing up the ball a couple of times. And that's why I said Dexter Lawrence.
Yeah, the way to play Jalen Hurts is to we got to blitz him. We got to send pressure. He's like, oh, well, they have the receivers. Okay. Well, if you don't do that, he's going to sit there and he's going to take the easy throws all day long, and they will be there for him. So
I'd rather die trying than die by the death of 1,000 cuts, like Chris said.
Pressure breaks pipes, as Wink Martindale said.
As he says.
Chris, obviously everyone knows where to find you on YouTube. By the way, I keep on, every time I look for your Twitter, I got to get myself in the habit. I've been typing DA Entertainah. I'm like,
I changed it. Yeah.
I changed it to just
I figured out how to do it after 2 years because I've been watching
Entertainah. Well, you're not as bad as one of my dad's friends who his name is Rick Parento, and his name is on Facebook is my Rick name Parento. It's still the same. So it's why I have such a fondness for Chris Myrick. It's because my dad's friend Myrick named Parento. All right, Chris, everyone knows where to find you on YouTube, all that good stuff. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Yeah, we definitely will. We're going to the NFC. Think about this real quick, guys. We are one win away from playing in a game to have an opportunity to go to the Super Bowl.
Stop.
Who would have thought that at the beginning of the year? Who would have thought
Stop.
I called it. No, we're I'm ready to go though. Like you're 1 of 8. You got a shot. You got Daniel Jones.
You never know. That's why they play the games. You got a shot.
All right, Chris. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right. We now welcome back onto the program. We said, hey, if we win, let's do it again. Let's run it back. Weiss, NYG Daily of the NYG Weekly Podcast of a lot of things. Weiss, you were in Minnesota. Was it as quiet as Nick Gates said?
In the beginning, no. Toward the end of the game, yeah. They got quiet.
I can't believe they went all out and like did put his picture on the
that was a great picture.
Scoreboard. Yeah, that's the thing. Is like that's the thing. Like Minnesota, the fake niceness. Like they put an awesome picture of Nick Gates up there. They didn't like they could have found something like a little less, flattering. Like they put like maybe his coolest picture ever on there, and then he was shushing the crowd. I mean, that's why we love Nick Gates.
It was great. He came onto the field and he had his finger on his mouth telling people to shush. Like it was great. It was great. And then I saw the TV had him got a view of him shushing the crowd as he walked off the field. So he walked onto the field the same way he walked off, telling the people of Minnesota shh, and that it's not loud enough.
Oh,
it wasn't.
You were there. Like it was the first Giants playoff win since Super Bowl 46.
Right.
We're gonna talk about Daniel Jones and say everything about this Giants win. Walk us through the experience of a New York Giants playoff victory on the road in scumbag Minnesota.
First of all, you flew out in the morning, which was extremely, extremely dangerous.
Always choose Delta, and that's not an ad or anything like that. But Delta has always done good to me.
All right,
so I always go Delta. Yeah.
All right, Delta.
Yeah, I flew out in the morning. I just didn't want to pay 2 nights for a hotel. But anyways, it was a great experience. I mean, I was telling, my brother-in-law who I traveled with, I said, you make a decision to go to these playoff games or go to a game in a different city. You're like, okay, I'm going for the experience. It's a nice stadium. Maybe my team will win. I mean, this trip for me checked all the boxes. I mean, it checked every single box. Great stadium, great atmosphere, playoff game. Won the game. Was a great game. Like, it checked everything for me, and it was a great experience as a fan just to be there and to experience something like that. It was awesome, and it was Minnesota Viking fans are some of the nicest people I've ever met in my life.
Oh, Bobby.
Yeah, I know Bobby has that thing.
They seem that way.
The amount of people that were shaking my hands after the game, you would think that I was a player on the team. Like they were coming, like people were coming up to, like a dude walked 5 rows above me, came down before he was leaving, and shook my hand and was
Let me shake your hand. I want to shake his hand.
It was great, and it was a great win, great game, great win. Everything was great about that trip. Loved it.
What was your I mean, I think you probably saw some of the stream highlights that we had, and everybody was freaking out. How many other Giants fans were there? Like, I've only been to one away game in my life, and that was the Andrew Thomas Bowl, aka I guess the Chase Young Bowl. But
yeah,
if you go to a Giants game
Titans game week 1,
I did go to the Titans game week 1. This is a good point. I can't believe I forgot about that. But even that game, there was a lot of Giants fans there, and anytime you go to a game in Washington, there's a lot of Giants fans there. So what were you doing? Did you feel like just screaming, hooting, hollering, and doing everything and just being fine? Or did you feel like you had to hold it back? Like, what was just the vibe there in general?
So I'm not really a trash talker. I don't like the trash talk. I was just, you're so in the moment. You're watching your team, go down the field. But in terms of Giant fans, there was a good amount of Giant fans. I was walking to the stadium. Every time you turn the corner, go Giants, or you saw like a group of Giants fans. There was one time I saw a group it was at least 20 Giant fans just walking down to the stadium or walking to a bar or whatever. And I saw them. There was a couple people reached out to me. There was a couple of live, watch parties in some of these bars in Minnesota. It was a lot of Giant fans. It was a lot of Giant fans. You saw it at the stadium. There were times you would hear, let's go Giants. It was, Giant fans travel. I didn't think I would see as much as I saw, but they travel well. Maybe on the television because the purple and the blue, you couldn't tell the difference. But there was a good amount of Giant fans there. And with the Viking fans, like, here's what happened. I got to tell you guys a story. So I'm sitting there, and guy 2 rows behind me is, he's like, Darius Slayton drops the pass. He's like, here we go. This is our time. Kirk Cousins, you're going back to New York. Well, I wasn't going back to New York, but you're going back to New York. You're going to be upset. Blah, 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 blah. This is how we win games. And when they lost, I just said, I was yelling out with a bunch of other Giant fans, like, hell yeah, we just beat a good team, right? 13 wins. And he chucked, there was like a pamphlet or a booklet sitting on each seat where I was sitting, and he chucked it at me. And as soon as I turned around, before I could say something to him, the buddy that he was with almost tried to fight him for throwing that at me. So wow. It was a weird experience. I kind of felt like I was in that movie Get Out, like where everybody's super nice to you. Like, wait a second, these people are not supposed to be this nice to me, but it was an odd experience. There was no like negative fan interaction that I had.
I actually wanted to bring something up though, because you brought up the Darius Slayton drop, Weiss, and I saw your tweet on it, and I think we both have similar viewpoints of Darius Slayton, but I kind of view it from like still, and you're like, you can't trust. Where are we at as Giants fans with Darius Slayton? Because I think it's tough, and because I think the Giants, they need Darius Slayton more than any other wide receiver on this roster. I really do. Like, that speed cannot be replaced by anybody, and you take away that speed, and it just changes the way defenses play the offense. And he still had 88 yards on 4 catches. But I also said, like, it seems like no matter what he does well, he's going to be defined by these big drops that he's had, whether it's the Washington tie, this game, Washington last year, and there's been other big ones too. And it's not like it's the one-offs. Like, he's had a high drop rate the last 2 years.
Here's my thing with Darius Slayton. I like Slayton. He's he makes big time catches at times. He's that speed guy. I'm with you, Bobby, that they need a receiver like Darius Slayton. But the problem is, and this is my rule with receivers, right? If I can't trust you to make a simple catch in a big moment, like everything else goes out the window, man. Like I get it. I understand what you're saying. Like they need Darius Lane because of his skill set. But my counter to that is they need a receiver that has the skill set of a Darius Lane, guy that has speed. But at the same time, he like you can't drop those kind of passes. You simply cannot do it. Like if they would have lost that game, just think about it. If they would have lost that game,
That's what we point to.
because of that drop.
It's another game on the list of like the Slayton drop in this game.
It's that Eagle game from Thursday Night Football times 100.
Yeah, it's like when we talk about Evan Ingram, we have a list of like, well, this game, this game. Like it's another one on the list for Slayton, and he's had the Commanders games in both of the last couple of years. There's been other ones too. Yeah, that's what like I don't want to talk about the offseason right now, but it's like if they aren't going to bring back Slayton. And they're going to keep Hodgins anyways. They'd be crazy to not keep Hodgins. But it's like you got to replace him with speed and someone who can consistently bring that speed. Because if you take his speed off the field, well, Hodgins isn't as fun. Richie James is, Richie James probably does some of the similar things, but even then, Richie James is not a game breaking player. Or Slayton, again, like as much as he had a drop, he had 88 yards on 4 catches, and we come away from these games, and it's been a multiple times this year. We're talking about Hodgins, but it's like Slayton had the same amount of yards, Yeah,
Slayton's the most talented wide receiver on the team, but it's just
it's such a frustrating thing that like we truly need him, but it's like you said, it's hard to trust him too, And I think he would be involved. I think he'd be getting, if there was more trust in him, I think he might be getting 8-9 targets a game. But there is some trust issues there.
Yeah.
We asked you before. I keep on saying we're going to talk about Daniel Jones. We asked you last week what one player outside of Daniel Jones do you think we're going to be talking about after the game? Who's that player?
I think it was Kayvon Thibodeau, right? Is that what I said?
Well, yeah, but I'm saying who, like the games happen. Who do you think is like that one player now?
Listen, I've been hard on this guy for a year. Dexter Lawrence is a game-changing, game-altering player. And you rarely see those at the position that he plays. So for me, what he did on that final drive, he was a problem. And people were talking about, the Vikings got Garrett Bradbury back. This is big for them. And I was just telling people, look, Garrett Bradbury, James Bradbury, Phil Bradbury, there was nobody else going to block Dexter Lawrence. He is a game-changing, game-altering player, and he can wreck a game, and he can do things for you. And on that final drive, he took it upon himself, like, we're not losing this game. And the ref in the passer call, I mean, it's BS, and I don't want to. I hate talking about the officials all the time, but you saw just how dominant he was throughout the game. And I think a big reason why the Vikings didn't run the ball as much as they did, especially in the second half, is because of Dexter Lawrence. He's awesome player. And he's not – look, Aaron Donald's one of the greatest defensive players of all time, but the season that he's having this year is an Aaron Donald level season, in my opinion. Like this season is what you see from Aaron Donald over his career, and that's saying a lot.
Yeah, I mean, how many plays does an offense run every single game? What, 30, 40, or around 40, maybe 50? I clipped up 13 Dexter Lawrence plays where he had an impact on kind of the way the play could have gone or the way the play did go actually within itself too. 13 plays where it was worthy of putting it on a screen and putting it in kind of a highlight reel. 13 plays, a minute and 47 seconds for one game. For one game, and that's a playoff game. 4 QB hits, which was the second highest of this season for Dexter Lawrence. So just insane stuff, man. It's dominance. It's dominance on a down in, down out basis.
The big thing is, for his size, the amount of snaps that he plays, that's incredible.
Yes,
you don't see a guy that big play that many snaps. No. He has become one of the best defensive players in football right before our eyes.
Yeah, who would have thought? We said Andre Patterson was like our favorite position coach hire, and man, that has proven to be true. Like, that guy just knows how to get into a D lineman's head and get the most out of him, and then obviously moving him the nose tackle. But like you said, I mean, we all talk about the last drive too, but like even in the run game, like, you know, that was our ask for, like, up front. Just get their run game off schedule. We're not asking you to totally shut them down the 2.5 yards per carry. That's asking too much with the Giants linebackers on the roster. But just get them off schedule, and that's what Dex did too. Leo did too. Leo had an underrated game.
Yeah.
Despite a couple
start,
like missed on tackles.
In the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, just Leonard Williams. It's like he had those missed tackles, but you know, I was watching. It's like he was being such a good compliment to Dexter Lawrence. So it's another one of those players that just because of the price tag, it leaves a sour taste in your mouth. Weiss, you mentioned about Dexter Lawrence's snap shares, and I actually never really cared to like look at these percentages and really appreciate it. There are games this year where Dexter Lawrence has played 94%, 90%, 97%, 86%, 91%, 88%, 84, 91, 67% against Indy, and that was still even in a blowout. The percentage of snaps that he played in this wild card game was 89%, 51 snaps. So out of 51 snaps, there were 13, 14 plays that he made like a significant, big time, game-changing impact on. Insane.
All right, let's talk about Danny Dimes now.
Wait,
Danny
long
was
enough.
diamond, like a perfect game. You know, we need it again, Daniel. There was, you know, regardless of what your opinions are on Daniel Jones, just like I just knew like this guy's gonna ball out in this game. Even if he makes a mistake or two, he's gonna ball out. He's gonna show up to play. And my gosh, he was playing with the swagger. Like, you know, the pump fake, you know, 5 yards down the field on the run, you know, like, and you look at it, it's like, oh, he had 17 carries for 78 yards. He really had like 13 for 82 because there was 4 kneel downs.
Right.
Like he had just total control of this offense. And it was, I'll say since the first couple weeks of the season, the most wide open that Dable and Kafka made the offense. Obviously, Vikings defense isn't as good as their record is. But man, I mean, he was diamond, and every play was perfect essentially.
You know, the big thing with, first of all, I don't pay no mind to people who try to discredit Daniel Jones anymore. I just don't do it. It's just not worth my time. But he was magnificent. He was marvelous. This is, you watch quarterbacks in their first career playoff game. It typically does not go well for these young quarterbacks. It didn't go well for Trevor Lawrence in the first half either before it got it going. Daniel Jones, to me, what makes him so special is the mental toughness. He's been through a lot in his fucking career. Like, we know he's been through a lot. And for him to have that moment. And the thing is, Bobby, is like we've seen Daniel have these big statistical games, but the team loses. Like that first one in Minnesota, right? Like, he had a great game, but they lost. To me, this one was like, he had a great statistical game. He had a game-winning drive. He made some big-time throws. And more importantly, he won the game. And it was a playoff game. Like, that's what made this so special. Is in his first career playoff game, he checked all those boxes. He created another box, and he checked that too. And he was awesome. And you guys asked me last week, well, can he lose money? And I told you the only thing he can do is make himself more money. Daniel Jones is going to play himself into a really significant contract.
Yeah.
And the more he keeps winning, the more it's going to be. And he's now, I think if you go the second half of the season, he's been the Giants' best player offensively. And they've sort of tailored the offense around him. And I want to ask you guys something, because to me, when people say he finally has great coaching and that's why he's excelling, I don't limit it to that. Like, I think he's gotten better, more confident. And then some of the intangible stuff with playing quarterback, like that has gotten better with him. Like, I don't think you can just simplify his success this season to, oh, well, he just finally had, like, Jason Garrett's not calling plays.
Yeah, well, when we say that, it's not like, oh, he was so horrible and then this coaching totally changed him. It was like he was in an offense that was actively holding him and everyone back. Besides like Sterling Shepard and Andrew Thomas, that offense was holding everybody. And you know what? Probably Shepard too. Shepard probably looks better not under Jason Garrett. But it was actively holding them back, and there were personnel issues too, right? But I always value offensive coordinator to me is more important than personnel issues. Like, which would you rather have bad at? I'd rather have bad personnel than bad offensive coordinator. And so part of coaching is like letting him improvise, right? Like where DJ scrambling in the past, it's like he'd always scrambled to run. Well, guess what? There was a bunch of stationary routes on the offense. So who is he going to throw to? Like the 8-yard curl isn't going to break open, my friends. Right. So and the coaching has put an emphasis on him, which never happened before, of freestyle a little more with your game outside the pocket, where we know that Jason Garrett was a very like quick timing offense, bat, throw the ball, read one player, throw the ball type thing. And then Pat Shurmur, who I don't hate Pat Shurmur like a lot of people do. Pat Shurmur was like 7-step drop, fucking chuck it down the field. He's type offense, where this is like, hey, if you don't like what you see, go and freestyle a little bit.
And the last 2 years, there's been a coaching staff that has coached and schemed up an offense afraid of turning over the ball. This offense, it's not like Pat Shurmur where it's just chuck it down the field, which that's a little bit what I thought that we were going to see. We're seeing conservative level, like the advanced numbers, like the average intended air yards. We're seeing like Jason Garrett level of average intended air yard numbers, but still it's within sustaining drives. It's within being effective and efficient inside the red zone. And it's the good coaching and yards after the catch. We saw a shit ton of that this past game, right? But the main thing, and this Paul Schwartz article that he put out a couple weeks ago has really stuck with me, because Daniel
Jones
Dave
Gettleman?
No, not about Dave Gettleman. It might. I think it was Paul Schwartz, where you actually got like a substantive Daniel Jones quote where he talked about the approach at which he's taken at playing quarterback this year, and recognizing the value of not just not turning over the ball, but sustaining drives, staying on schedule, keeping an offense on schedule, and keeping running your kind of menu of plays. And we've seen it this year where Daniel Jones, even though I don't think Daniel Jones has had a huge turnover problem since his rookie season. I think that's just it's a rookie year narrative that has kind of stayed with him, but still his interception rate was 2.2% in 2020.
Yeah.
2021 it was 1.9%, which a lot of quarterbacks, if you're around that 1.9% rate of throwing interceptions, that's like all right. Daniel Jones, his interception rate is 1.1 through the regular season. Didn't throw another interception, so I guarantee it. I think it has to be around 1%. Interception rate of 1 out of every 100 pass attempts, only throwing an interception, and 1 or 2 of them probably wasn't even his fault this year. Think of David Sills falling down. So that's really the biggest thing with Daniel Jones is, we saw the kind of insane bananas throw to Isaiah Hodgins on the sideline. There hasn't been a ton of those throws this year where it's like, oh my God, look at this Daniel Jones throw. But he's kept the offense on schedule. He's not turned over the ball. And at the end of the day, this offense is much better and it's producing better because he's complemented the great coaching that he's received.
Yeah, the turnover thing should have died at the very beginning of 2021. Like, remember the Bucs Monday Night Football game, 2020, where they almost won? He
hasn't had the disaster game. That's honestly been also the biggest difference, too.
In that year, because the beginning of 2020 was his worst football. Like, he had the Pat Shurmur mindset and the Jason Garrett offense, and it was bad. Like, it was flat out bad. He had thrown 2 interceptions from week 8 of 2020 to week 6 of 2021. You want to know what those 2 were? Everingham popping it up versus the Cowboys and the Hail Mary versus the Saints. Like, those are, so the turnover thing should have died long ago. Now, do we want to start taking more shots down the field? Absolutely. But that's where, and the Burt Coleman video irks me a little bit, is like, yeah, you can find a play here or there,
you gotta stop,
but they're not running these concepts like other teams do because they don't have the dudes to do it. And I still think they should, because safeties are going to make mistakes. Corners are going to make mistakes in those guys. So I think there should be a little more aggression in this offense. And we saw it this past week, but there's been games this year where I think there should have been more aggressiveness in the drop back. But it's like, well, they're not really running these concepts to begin with because they don't have like a guy that can trust to go out there and win, right? Like, like even last year they did. Like last year, Galladay was a much better player than he was this year. Like this, and they should have trusted him in that. This year, the hip surgery or what, like he just came in, he can't get off the line of scrimmage anymore.
Weiss, do you know who Burt Coleman is?
Yeah. Not. Unfortunately, I do. I wish I didn't.
Well,
It's
his
because
his
of
name his name is Brett, not Bert.
it's because of people like Bobby who constantly put his stuff on my timeline. I have no choice.
See, I ignored it for a while, and then he said what irked me was they're on average for 250 rushing yards. I was like, yeah, who led the Giants in rushing by 25 yards? Can we
That's
figure out that?
that's the most impressive thing about for me from Sunday is the 17 rushes for 78 yards. Like it's dynamic Danny to me. Like that they just give him the ball. And by the way, seeing him in person, I've seen him a couple times in person.
Fast.
So much faster in person.
Yes, but he's a big motherfucker. I'm sorry,
yeah.
excuse my language. He is huge. I mean, I was watching him warming up and I was drooling seeing how big this guy is. Like he is fantastic. And this game to me,
drooling over that Danny Dimes, huh? Drooling
hey
over.
man, listen, the confidence level, confidence level that I have with this quarterback is skyrocketing right now. They can win a lot of games with him. His ability to just compartmentalize the bad stuff and his mental toughness and the fortitude and just the way he plays and how he can run around and he lowers his shoulders when he sees a DB that's 6'1". He's like, there's no way I'm sliding here. This is a player that you don't see guys take this kind of leap in year 4. This is typically that year 2 leap, but I've just been so impressed with Daniel Jones. He's had a rough 4 years here in New
Well, I think he
York.
would have taken that jump if it wasn't for a war criminal.
That's
anyway,
the thing. That's the thing. Yeah.
Anyway, this is one of my favorite stats of the entire season that I learned, and it was when you had Warren Sharp on your podcast. So
Right.
what's the stat that I'm thinking of? What is the most efficient play in football? It's connected to Daniel Jones and the quarterback running.
Quarterback drops his nuts and does the quarterback draw.
No, well, when he drops back to pass. And then the
Yes.
quarterback chooses to run. That is the most efficient play in football. And I learned that Warren Sharp on the NYG Weekly podcast. How do you like that?
And it helps when the guy is 6'5", 230 and can run over, the defense. Daniel
And
Jones
has no fear in his brain. Like
no.
Like that was the biggest worry coming out of 2019. It's like, okay, this is fun, but like maybe don't like just get wrecked play after play while you're throwing the ball down the field.
And I promise you, those all 22 throws that get shared on social media, that's gonna come as his skill position players get better.
Mm-hmm.
He can make some of those wild throws. There was a fly route to Darius Slayton that, again, Slayton should have caught it. I don't care that the pass was broken up. You need to catch that ball. I think it was a free play, or they were trying to hurry it up. So
it was a hurry up. It was the second best throw of the game after the first best throw of the game. That throw to Hodges.
Right. I think they were trying to hurry it up because they didn't want Minnesota challenging the play before.
Yeah,
and he threw a beautiful fly route, and I'm like, he threw it. Slayton should have caught that pass, and those type of throws are going to come as his skill players get better. But this is dynamic Danny, man. That's what he is, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, you have a real wide receiver one. That's a touchdown right there.
Easily.
And that's like best throw of the whole play, like playoff weekend. If you have a wide receiver one out there. All right, man. One, everyone go check out the NYG Weekly podcast. Follow NYG Daily. We were on the podcast last week having a good time.
Can I give a quick shout out before I go?
All right, shout out to Weiss's mom,
Kenny Galladay too.
Oh, dude. So at our watch party, I'm going to ask you, are you going to come to the watch party? At our watch party, that was the most fired up after one single play. And I turned into a bad human being during those things. And the Kenny Galladay is that just fired me up more than anything.
Wait. So I'm looking at something right now that Seth Walder just put out. I signed it to my ESPN Plus account. We're talking about Daniel Jones. He put out I want to get this right. He put out a ranking NFL's top 100 most valuable players of the 2022 season. Well, I guess valuable, it has analytics in it, but Andrew Thomas, 27. Dexter Lawrence, 31. 48, Daniel Jones.
Dude, Justin, when we do our award show at the end of the year, I'm going to be mad that I vote for Andrew Thomas because I want to vote for Daniel Jones.
Yeah, those are the only 3 Giants in the top 100. I'm tweeting it out now from the Talking Giants account.
All right. Well, are you coming to our watch party or what, man?
70% I am in. I got to see how I feel, man. In case people didn't know, I came down with COVID. So trying to overcome this, feeling better, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I definitely want to come out and support. You know how much I love you guys.
Of course, we appreciate
love
you
you
as
too.
always. And let's run it back next week. Let's run it back next week for a conference championship game.
Absolutely.
Thanks for jumping on with us.
Peace.
All right. Thank you to Chris, the Entertainah, and NYG Daily Weiss for coming on. Looking forward to talking to those guys next week after a win. Justin, preview pod on Friday. Very excited for it. Let's win some games.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad that we didn't talk a lot of game plan stuff and approach stuff during this show. So that means you got to catch the preview pod. You got to check it out. I think, Bobby Skinner, you're flying up Thursday morning, so we'll be in person again for it. What are we doing about Danny King? We got to talk about it. We'll plan it out. He'll be there.
Just hope the warehouse internet doesn't suck or I will lose my mind.
We'll be there. He'll be there. We'll all be there, and we'll all be hanging out talking about how we're going to beat the Philadelphia Eagles.
All right. We appreciate you guys. We'll be back on Friday with a preview pod. Let's win some games. Should I change the outro to let's win some games and let's go Big Blue?
No, you're a big tradition guy. Stick with it. Let's you add to it. Let's win some games. And until then.
I was going to say, let's win some games. Oh, I do the until then. All right. Well, let's just win some damn games. We'll see you Friday. And until then, let's go Big Blue.